Hi, I'm Paul Clark from Hilliard, Ohio, and you're listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, the podcast where two Midwestern moms talk progressive politics and political activism with expert guests.
Hi everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics. I'm here in this episode with Edward Erikson, who is the campaign director of Stamp Stampede. Hi, Ed.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So I'm going to start with the obvious question. What is Stamp Stampede?
The Stamp Stampede is a grassroots campaign with about 100,000 members who are legally rubber stamping dollar bills, literally stamping money out of politics.
All right. So stamping money, is this all denominations of money?
This is all denominations of money, any paper currency. And, what's really interesting is this is a tactic that has been used in political campaigns going back to the Roman Empire when people would cross out Caesar's face on the coin, and even more relevant in 1902 in the women's suffrage movement, the women were carving votes for women on the English penny. This was for British suffrage. And so this is a tactic of people using currency and the viral circulation of currency to spread messages to really strengthen democracy.
And so what are the messages that you're putting on the money?
We're saying things like stamp money out of politics, not to be used to bribe politicians, not to be used to buy elections. Mostly messages around campaign finance reform and the influence of concentrated money and corporate power in U.S. elections. We're also using messages about voting rights and voter suppression, because we really see it as two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have wealthy donors and corporations using concentrated money to buy access and influence in Washington. And on the other side of the coin, you have people passing laws making it more difficult to vote or making access to the voting booth harder to keep people in power.
So you said there's about 100,000 volunteers. How long has this been going on?
So the campaign started, the germ of the idea came from the founder, which was Ben Cohen, who's the co-founder of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream during Occupy Wall Street. And it started as a working group as part of Occupy Wall Street. Ben saw that money in politics was one of the underlying issues of everything that they were protesting and one of those core issues behind the inequalities that are growing in the country right now. And so it was around 2011, and the campaign formally launched in 2012, right after the presidential election. So it took us a while to get 100,000.
And where are these people located? Are they all over the country?
Yeah, we have people in every state, including Puerto Rico, most heavily clustered in urban areas. And, not to be surprised, a lot of people in Vermont, a lot of people in New Hampshire, but most heavily in New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, Seattle. Those are our big hubs.
Where do people get the stamps? Are they making their own stamps? Are they buying stamps somewhere?
So most people will get stamps on our website. And if you go to stampstampede.org, you can buy a stamp and you can customize it with your own personal ID. And so Ben has a little ID that's Ben1, and Jerry has a little ID that's STMP. And right before I got on this interview, the two of them were going back and forth because Ben just passed Jerry on a leaderboard. So with a little personal ID, people, when they find a stamp bill, they can go on the website and they can track the bills. And this is really important because what's happening is, you're stamping a bill, you're sending a message, and then somebody's seeing it and they're going to the website, they're learning more about the campaign. And in a lot of cases, people are actually buying stamps and joining the campaign. And so we've seen an acceleration of people joining. We've had about 15,000 join just this year.
So the bills then just remain in circulation, right? So multiple people could report the same bill in theory.
Yeah, in theory, on average, the bills are in circulation for about 2.5 years. The normal life cycle of a bill is about 5 years, and we assume any bill is halfway through its life cycle, and these bills will be seen multiple times. And there is a place where people can enter serial numbers, and so we do track when, one bill has been seen multiple times.
So you said it can be used in any denomination. Is there a most frequent denomination that people are stamping? Do people still use cash?
That's a great question. So most frequently, we recommend that people stamp 1s and 5s because they circulate the most. Again, if you go out to dinner with Ben or Jerry, you can have a good time as they pay for their meal in 1s. And this is a true story. They do often. And a lot of our top stampers do the same. You just spend more money, you circulate more money. But we see lots of examples where people are finding bills from ATM machines, and those are usually higher denominations. The ATM machine's actually giving you a 20 or a 10 that has a stamp message on it.
What is the ultimate goal? Is it to get all money out of politics? Is it to get money out of politics in particular ways? What are you hoping to really do with this movement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the ultimate goal is for a constitutional amendment that would essentially overturn a few Supreme Court cases, the first being Buckley versus Vallejo that came down in, I think it was 1976, that ruled in political campaigns money is the equivalence of speech, and therefore it can't be limited. And then there was a series of other rulings, most notably Citizens United, which said if money is speech and if corporations are people, then corporations too can spend unlimited amount of money to influence elections, making it easier for corporations to have a huge voice and any average person to have a very little voice. Mm-hmm. And so we think that in order for Congress to be able to pass any laws to regulate in a reasonable way campaign finance, that we have to pass this constitutional amendment. Now, we would like them to go even further and pass an amendment that would require all elections to be paid for by what we describe as democracy vouchers. So essentially, every citizen would get a $100 voucher that they could use, and this would be a tax credit. And they could use that money to support a candidate, and candidates wouldn't be able to use any other source of money. They are testing laws like this. Seattle recently passed a democracy voucher program. It's been incredibly popular. They've seen a surge in participation among citizens, and that's really what this is about. It's about getting more people engaged in the political process. It's about returning power to everyday citizens and getting them involved.
What do you think would be the effects of something like that on campaigns? I spend a lot of time talking to candidates and talk a lot about the ways that they campaign, the types of things they're spending money on. What do you think would be an effect of something like this? Do you think campaigning itself would change, or just who had the power would change?
Yeah, I think campaigning would change, and this is true on the Republican side or the Democrat side, and I'll give you another example. Maine was the first state to pass a clean election law in 1996. It went into effect in 2008, and what this law did was it said any person who wants to run for the state legislature, you can raise $105 contributions, you can have access to, I think it was about $5,100 in funding, and that amount went up depending on the office you're running for. So the first thing it did was it meant that candidates were going out and connecting with their friends and family, their close network, and raising these $5 contributions. The second thing that it meant was that they didn't have a lot of money for TV ads, but they had a lot of time because they were limited in what they could raise, and so they spent a lot of time knocking on doors and talking to constituents. And that is one of the big changes that I think would happen, is you'd see candidates spending a lot more time talking to people and feeling pressure to be available to the public rather than spending so much time fundraising. Now, the second thing that would change, and this is really important, is that when you get to the federal level, obviously congressional districts are very big. You know, a state Senate district, you might represent 10,000, 30,000 people. A congressional district, you're representing 750,000 people. You can't talk to all those folks. Once you get elected to Congress and you're in office, your committee position and your power is contingent on how much money you can raise. And so people have to pay dues to the DCCC. Based on those dues, they're getting committee appointments. If you change how we finance campaigns, it changes the power structure of Washington for both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So it not only changes who's in office, but it changes how the parties would have to function once they're in power.
Would this kind of constitutional amendment or these changes also affect campaigns that are self-funded?
Yes, it would. And so, and that's why it would be important to have a law that said campaigns can only be funded by democracy vouchers, which would essentially level the playing field so that a wealthy billionaire had the same, had to fund his campaign the same way as a school teacher. Right now, it's 100% lopsided. It is not an even playing field, and it's tilted very much in favor of those who are either extremely wealthy or have access to extreme wealth.
I live in Illinois, where we have two billionaires battling it out for governor, so that would make a big difference here.
Exactly.
You said that there are 100,000 people that have these stamps or have done this. Do you think that many people are sort of actively doing this? Is that the number of people who have signed up over the whole time?
So 100,000 is the number of people who have purchased stamps.
Okay.
I do not anticipate or have any illusion that every one of those people are stamping. We have some that are very, very active, and I'm sure we have a lot who don't do it. I will say that this is really a tactic. This campaign is a tactic that's in service of a larger movement that includes a number of organizations, probably about 140, 150, in some organizations that work on all sorts of different issues, like Greenpeace and Sierra Club, that have come together to say, if we want to support a strong environment and have a government that supports strong environmental policies, we need to address the problem of concentrated money in politics. And there are other organizations like American Promise that are helping people in their communities organize to pass local resolutions and to lobby their members of Congress to advance this constitutional amendment. And so this is really a coalition effort. The Stampede plays one small part in it. And for us, it's this is what Ben does best. It's guerrilla marketing. It's giving people something to do and get engaged. It's about creating a mass demonstration of support for the amendment, but it is also a small piece in a much larger puzzle.
Well, and it seems like a really appealing kind of piece, that guerrilla marketing. I mean, I'm thinking about my kids. My kids would love to stamp money and then go spend it and then go back to the website and see if anyone had seen it yet. That seems like something that they would just think was terrific.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And one thing that is interesting are the types of people who interact with it. And a lot of our stampers tend to be older. We have a lot of grandparents, and we get pictures all the time of grandparents with their grandkids stamping. The type of people who report bills, and it's interesting because they'll take selfies of themselves with the bill and they upload it to the website. And so we get all of these stories and selfies. It is just the most diverse and unique group of people who are reporting the bills, and it really has this message in a bottle type effect where we're cutting across this very fragmented media world and communicating and connecting with people that you would otherwise never connect with. When you can stamp a bill in Burlington, Vermont, and it gets found in Topeka, Kansas at a truck stop and then ends up in a Papa John's pizza in San Jose, California. And, it's a fascinating thing. And this issue is incredibly popular among the American public. The University of Maryland just came out with a poll about 2 weeks ago showing, again, that 88% of Democrats and